There's a man named Walt who runs the register at a hardware store on Route 9 every Tuesday and Thursday from 9 to 4. Been there 6 years. He knows you take the same brand of coffee filters every other week, that you always pay in cash, that you wave instead of saying goodbye because you're usually already halfway out the door with a bag in each hand. He thinks you do something in logistics. He's not wrong, exactly. He's just missing almost the entire picture. Your phone is face down on the passenger seat of a 2017 Toyota Tacoma with 94,000 miles on it. Somewhere in Denver, a self-storage facility you own outright just processed rent from 340 units, on autopilot, no calls, no drama. Somewhere in Tampa, a car wash you funded quietly through a holding company nobody's ever bothered to search cleared $19,000 this month. In two other states, a commercial laundry service, a fleet of vending machines, and a small regional trucking company are all running today without a single decision from you. Total asset value? A little over $500 million. Walt is ringing up your coffee filters. He has no idea he's talking to a man who owns the building 3 doors down from his store. It started with a broken ice machine. Not a business plan, not a mentor, not a moment that would look good in a documentary. A broken ice machine at a laundromat you used to visit in your 20s, back when you were making $38,000 a year doing maintenance work for an apartment complex. You mentioned it to the guy mopping the floor. He shrugged and said the owner didn't even know it was broken, that the owner didn't really know what half the machines in the place were doing on any given day. You went home that night and couldn't stop thinking about it. 4 hours at your kitchen table with a legal pad, trying to work out what a laundromat actually made in a week if you ran the numbers honestly. You called the owner the next morning. Old guy, tired voice, said he'd been meaning to sell for 2 years and just never got around to it. You didn't have the money. You had $6,200 in savings and a truck that needed brakes. So you did the only thing that made sense. You asked if he'd carry part of the note himself if you found the rest. He laughed, then said maybe. 6 weeks of phone calls, one small loan from a credit union that almost said no, and a seller who wanted out badly enough to take a risk on you. You bought your first laundromat for $84,000. First month, after every expense, you cleared $340. You know that number is small. You knew it then, too. It didn't matter. Something about the structure of it, money coming in whether you showed up or not, rearranged something in your head that never went back. By month 9, you'd fixed the machines nobody else bothered to fix, and profit doubled without adding a single customer. By year 2, you owned 3 laundromats. You told nobody. Not your parents, not the friends you grew up with, not the woman you were dating at the time. It felt too small to bring up, and by the time it stopped being small, silence had already become the default setting of your entire life. Here's the part almost nobody explains properly about money at this scale. The quiet isn't modesty. It isn't a personality trait you decided to adopt. It's structural. The moment someone actually finds out, not suspects from the truck or the jeans, but finds out, something shifts in their face permanently. You've watched it happen more times than you can count. A small recalibration behind the eyes. They're still looking at you, but they're now looking at a door they didn't know existed, quietly wondering whether they should walk through it. They rarely mean anything cruel by it. That took years to stop feeling bitter about. But the relationship has a new room in it after that moment, one that neither of you built on purpose and neither of you can talk your way out of. So you built a life engineered to be forgettable. The Tacoma is gray, has a dent in the tailgate from a parking garage post you never bothered to fix. 94,000 miles and climbing. At a dinner 2 years ago, a man in a very good watch asked what you drove. You told him. His attention visibly moved on before the sentence was even finished, the way it does with a certain type of person sizing up a room. You spent the next 20 minutes asking about his private equity fund, the easiest conversation on earth with that kind of man, and learned he managed other people's money with a great deal of confidence and fairly unremarkable results. You said goodnight. You drove home in the Tacoma. Your apartment is the second floor of a duplex you've rented for 4 years. Clean, plain, the kind of place a careful person settles into and stops noticing after a while. You own the building. Your name isn't on the deed. An LLC is, one that resolves to nothing interesting if anybody ever bothered to look, which nobody ever has. The man downstairs, Kevin, does HVAC repair and is genuinely excellent at it. Last winter, he knocked on your door at 10:15 at night because his heat had gone out and he didn't know who else to call. You told him you'd handle it. You texted your property manager before his door had fully closed. A technician was there by 7 the next morning. Kevin left a voicemail thanking you, calling you one of the good landlords. That voicemail is still on your phone. You're not entirely sure why you haven't deleted it. The laundromats funded the storage facility in Denver. The storage facility funded a distressed strip mall a regional bank needed off its books after a defaulted loan, bought well below replacement cost. Not because you were taking advantage of anyone, but because speed and certainty were worth more to a desperate seller than an extra 8%. And you had become genuinely fast and genuinely certain in a way that's rarer than people assume. Then the car wash. Then the trucking company, from a 61-year-old man named Russ, who sat across from you in a diner and said the things sellers almost always eventually say. I just need to know my drivers will keep their jobs. You told him you'd make sure of it. He believed you. The deal closed in 3 weeks. Nobody talks about the boring part out loud, but it's the entire secret. None of these businesses need you to believe in them. Nobody's writing a think piece about a self-storage facility that clears $41,000 a month. They just sit there, running, making money while everyone else is chasing whatever's currently shining online. You stopped looking for the shiny thing around year 4, not because you became wise, because you actually sat down and did the math, and the math never once pointed toward shiny. Your accountant, a precise, unsentimental woman named Priya, 6 years working with you now, looked at your full portfolio once and described it as aggressively unremarkable. She meant it as a mild criticism. You asked her to put it in writing. She looked at you for a second and didn't write it down. That's the exact moment you understood you'd found the right person for the job. The loneliness is real, though it's not the dramatic kind. It's not something you lie awake measuring. It's quieter than that, more like a fact you've made peace with. There are rooms inside your life nobody gets to walk into, not out of cruelty, not out of some calculated decision, just because you've learned exactly what happens when those rooms get open to the wrong person, and what it costs afterward. You sit across from people you genuinely love and listen to them stress about problems you could resolve with a single phone call. You nod. You ask thoughtful questions. You let them arrive at their own conclusion. It isn't dishonesty. It's the only version of the relationship that actually keeps working. Your closest friend, Devin, is the kind of person who makes any room feel warmer just by being in it. Runs a small electrical contracting crew. Works harder than almost anyone you know. Has been stuck at the same ceiling for 3 years. Not from lack of skill, but from lack of access to capital, and the kind of connections capital quietly opens up. 18 months ago, he came to you with a real opportunity. A small commercial building in a neighborhood he understood better than anyone. Priced right, motivated seller. The kind of deal that doesn't come around twice. He needed $65,000. He had $15,000. You didn't write the check. That wasn't coldness. You need to understand that clearly. Years earlier, with someone else, someone with real belief and a real plan, you had written a check like that once. The money was gone within 14 months. The friendship eventually came back, quieter, with a scar on it neither of you ever names directly. What you learned from that is simple. Money handed to someone before they're ready doesn't build anything real. It just accelerates whatever pattern was already there. And the friendship becomes the collateral when it goes wrong. So instead, you spent 5 Saturday mornings at Devin's kitchen table, walked him through the entire deal structure, showed him how to approach a community lender instead of a bank, reviewed the comps with him line by line, ran the exit scenarios until he could recite them without looking at his notes. He secured the financing through a local development fund 6 weeks later. The building closed. It's performing well. He texted you afterward. Man, I don't know how you knew all that stuff. You told him you just read a lot. He called you weird. You told him, yeah, probably. The check would have only been a fast lane back to the same ceiling. This was the first time in his life he actually bought something instead of gambling on it. You crossed $500 million in total assets on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Priya's quarterly summary landed in your inbox at 2:14 p.m. Subject line simply reading, Q3, reconciliation. No exclamation point anywhere in it. Priya is not an exclamation point person. Neither are you. That's most likely exactly why this has worked as long as it has. You were at the hardware store when it landed. Coffee filters in one hand, phone in the other. You read the number once, put the phone in your pocket, and looked at Walt scanning your items without any particular hurry. The radio behind the register was playing something slow from the early 2000s. Somebody's forklift beeped in the loading area out back. There was something sitting in your chest that wasn't quite pride and wasn't quite relief either. It was closer to recognition, the specific feeling of finally seeing the face of someone you'd been trying to remember for a very long time. You thought about a 24-year-old at a kitchen table with a legal pad and a broken ice machine and absolutely no reason to believe any of it would go anywhere. You thought about every quiet Saturday you reinvested instead of spent, every deal nobody outside a small circle ever heard about, every room you kept closed for reasons that made sense at the time, every moment that felt like restraint in the moment and turned out later to be the entire foundation. Walt asked if you wanted a bag. You said, "Sure, thanks." He has no idea he's worked 2 blocks from a man worth $500 million for 6 years. He's not wrong about who you are, though. You're the guy who buys the same coffee filters every other Tuesday. That part was always true, too. Somewhere right now, in whatever city you happen to be in, someone is standing behind a counter thinking they know exactly who you are. The quiet delivery driver. The guy who tips well and never makes a scene. The neighbor who's easy to deal with and doesn't cause problems. They're not wrong. They're just working with roughly 10% of the actual picture, and the other 90% was never going to announce itself because that was never the point. The point was never to be seen. The point was simply to keep building, quietly, for long enough that the number eventually stopped being something you had to explain to anyone at all.